Got an idea of how Bluebeam takes off. What do you do with those takeoffs? How do you bolt them all together into something useful? I'll walk you through a recent project I've just done. This was 4 separate blocks, a couple of different house types, terraced. Going back to when I mentioned housekeeping, once I've taken a drawing off and saved it in the output file, I'll always call it the markup. If I open that in PDF Reader, Adobe or whatever, you'll see it just opens as you would expect a PDF, and you can see all your markups, but unless you open it in Bluebeam, these markups are not going to be of much use to you or anyone you send them to. So open them in Bluebeam. Although you can see all your workings, it doesn't work the way Bluebeam does. So what you need to do is open it with Bluebeam, and what you'll see here is the full takeoff. Now bear in mind I've done my plan, my first floor plan, my elevations, then I've stapled them all together. That's why these, you're always scrolling through pages 1 to 4 here. But everything, all the markups, all the dims are all combined in their own columns. And I'd go ahead and output that as a CSV file. So plots 1 to 4. Let's look at the CSV file for plots 1 to 4. This is where I mentioned housekeeping. I always split them up into the relevant folders. So that's what the output would have looked like. And I'd have to manipulate that into a BQ format, which I've then saved. I call them dims, as I explained before. So there's plots 1 to 4. My dims for plots 1 to 4. Let's make that so you can see it. So nice and simple. So effectively I've manipulated my CSV and I've just got all my quants for all my items here. So you can see each section's got its own total. And as I explained, manipulation goes on at the bill end as well. For instance, as an example of that, I've got my perimeter girth and I've done my splash, my damper, my underfloor vents in the spreadsheet here. I think sometimes if you are going to send your quants to a client, then you might want to go ahead and tidy up all these repetitive entries. It's a bit more work, but I think I've done one of those in this particular takeoff. Let's see if I can find one. 8 and 9. 6. Maybe not here, but maybe in the exported summary I may have done it. Let's see. Yes, I have. If you can see there, just to simplify things, once I've summarised the bills and added in the rates and stuff, I've taken away all the duplicity, so it's less confusing for somebody who's not taking this off to follow along. So how do we get from those bills to a submission document, summary document? I'll show you that now too. Right, so this is my takeoff folder for this particular job. I've now got my bills that I've manipulated from CSV. So I've got that one and I've got 5, 6 and 7. Let's just work with these 2 files for now. So 2 distinct folders. I've got markup for 1 to 4, markup 5 and 6. And all we've got at the moment is quants, nothing else, no extended rates or anything like that. open a new spreadsheet, a new blank workbook, if you like. Now, file, save as, give this a name. And we're going to call it summary. It's important to name it first so you know where you're working towards. Now this is saved on my desktop. What I'll do, I'll get each of these tabs in their own bill, if you like, brought into one workbook, and I do it by dragging. If you click and the icon appears as a page, it allows you to drag it into the other workbook, and it will just shut the other sheet, and the original sheet will still be there. You won't have affected it. It will just basically copy it straight into a new summary book. So this is going to be my summary. So I'm going to need to summarize 1 to 4 plots, 1 to 4 plots, 5, 6 and 7. Save as you go along. Now, as you can see, I've just got quants in there. Now, what I could do is go through, and I usually do for a smaller job, but when you've got, as I said, 20 or 30 of these tabs, you need to have some kind of consistency, because we've all done markups where we've gone through and the bill is 50 pages long and it repeats and repeats and repeats. You have to keep flicking back and forth to what did I use for 100 mil there on that page? What did I use for peers on that page? So as I said, you can individually go ahead and price each item on each page. Give yourself a summary at the bottom. So 20, so is equal to sum of £20 times quant. Let's call them £15 equals the sum of 15 times the quant. You get the idea, and you've done that on both bills, and you have got a summary for each bill. So plots 1 to 4 is equal to that summary that you've just created, and go through each individual bill like that. Do the same for 5, 6 and 7. Add your next bill in the way that I showed you, and you'll end up with a summary document that looks like this. So you can see here, plots 1 to 4, that's coming from 1 to 4 summary. Five, 6 and 7, same thing. It's all been rated and extended. As I say, I sometimes embed the markup in there in each tab, but when you're sending it to a client, it makes the output of the Excel file rather large, and you can't send it by standard email unless you do it via one of these WeTransfer links kind of services. When you have a lot of tabs, as I said, it's very laborious to go through and put all these rates in against each item on every page and extend it. So this is where Excel comes into its own. What I've done is I've taken all the descriptions and put them into a labours and rates page of their own. So they've got their own tab. So I've taken all the descriptions from this column here, copied them into this list and standardized them. I've given them all, I've tidied up the text. So these loosely match the descriptions that are in my bills here. Point dummy stack before others. Point dummy stack. Let's see. Sometimes you'll go to the trouble of separating out the through the wall taking off. Sometimes you won't. I'll measure through the wall. See what I've done here. What have I done here? Yeah, I've gone through the wall here. You could separate this out because you've got the area. So you'd separate that into 3 distinct descriptions, but just for brevity on this one, I have kept that at a cavity wall through the wall description, and that's been built up there. So it's matches that. There's my 70. And if I look at plot 1 to 4, my 70 has been brought across. I'll show you how you do that in a minute, but to get uniformity, once you've created this list, what I do, I highlight the list and I right click it and I give it its own specific name. I generally call it labours and rates. So trust me, that's what this list is named as. So these are set as constants. What I then do to ensure uniformity throughout my bills is there's a process you can do in Excel. Those of you familiar with it probably already know it as well. If I pick this column, you'll notice that there's available to me a drop down pick list. And these match the descriptions from this list. Exactly. Spelt the same syntax, everything. That's important for using the next function I'm going to explain in Excel, which is Vlookup. So I will go through each one of my bills and I will make sure that those descriptions are exactly as per my list. Otherwise this will all go wrong. So I'm looking for dummy arches on there. I'm looking for the through the wall description, and I will go down and I will make sure that that's level with the quant, with that description. You can, as you can see here, I've done away with all the other lists so that it doesn't cause confusion. So all my items have been picked. They're all adjacent to the quantity that they have. So another shortcut I use to get the rate into each individual bill is the Vlookup function that's inbuilt into Excel. So let's go back to labours and rates. Now I've set myself up some columns here. They're my labour rates. Now when I initially priced this, I just did it labour only. And this, I actually build in some future proofing into my spreadsheets, because if I come back to this having been told, no, we now want a mortar and sundries or a labour and mortar price, I've already built in the capacity to input the additional rates. So to make sense of that, you'll see here that this extension rate, that's going to be imported into each bill. But I've left enough capacity in there, should I need to come back to this later, to input those rates there for my mortar. So as an example, say I want to use £7 for mortar there. My 48 has jumped up to 55 because of the way I've done the formula. So let's look at 300mm splash in one of the bills, and it should have changed to 55. So where's the 300mm splash? There it is, and you can see the rate's updated itself to 55. So again, when we do these bills, I always like to build in a little bit of redundancy for future editing. So supposing we wanted to come back later on and shave everything down by 2%. I've left myself a column that's included in the formula for lending itself to be manipulated in the future. So I'll show you in a next video how to get the rates from the rates tab into each one of the bills and then back into the summary.